Hi, I'm Chris Giamo, and at TD Bank, we believe all citizens need to be informed about the important financial issues that affect their daily lives. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
Funding for this edition of Caucus New Jersey has been provided by the Turrell Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, the New Jersey Education Association, TD Bank, Hackensack Meridian Health, Johnson & Johnson, the Fidelco Group, and by New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation. Promotional support provided by The Record, North Jersey's trusted source, and northjersey.com. And by NJ Biz, all business, all New Jersey.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. There are two guests that are here in the studio to talk about special education needs of children and, more importantly, what parents can do. Let me introduce two of them. Debra Clifford and Mary Frances Palisano, Child Advocacy Team Co-Chairs at Gibbons P.C, which is a law firm in Newark I know very well. I've done some leadership coaching there, and they are one of the underwriters of what we do on this series. But the whole question of special education, first of all, define it. What is it?
Special education is a series of accommodations, services that are provided to children with disabilities who are identified as needing services to help them obtain an appropriate education.
Okay, but what's interesting is when I was doing some teaching around leadership and you were one of the students in the class, one of the things I learned is that you have a very personal connection to this subject. Share that with folks.
I do. I have twins who were born at 25 weeks. So they had a lot of cards stacked against them from the very beginning. So when they were discharged from the hospital, they immediately started receiving services from the state. And when they were 3 years old, those services transitioned from the state to the school district that we lived in at the time. So they were immediately identified. They were given individual education plans, which we refer to as IEPs.
Right.
And they started to receive services, occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech therapy, some sort of cognitive therapy to help them get to, to catch up.
Is that accessible to all children, all parents in the state of New Jersey?
Well, the child has to be identified, and whether the child is either identified by a parent who goes to the school and says, I think my child has a problem, or the school has an obligation to affirmatively identify those children that they think might have a disability.
But there has to be an evaluation, correct?
That's right. So the process is when a parent thinks that their child needs services, they can write a letter to the school. It has to be in writing to advise the school.
You can't just call the school.
No, it has to
put
be
it in writing.
It has to be a written
and
letter.
What has to be in there? Do you have to describe what it is you're seeing? What are you looking for?
Well, you just have to notify the school that there's issues that you want the child study team to look into.
Such as?
Well, there could be a reading problem. There could be dyslexia is very prominent right now. So a lot of school districts are doing a lot of programs to help kids who have reading issues. And teachers sometimes identify students in the classroom, and that's another way that a child can be referred.
So a teacher could see it, a parent could see it, but if we're primarily our objective is to help parents right now, what would you say parents should be, quote unquote, looking for? Because then the advocacy part is even more challenging.
Right. Well, parents have to, as most parents do, they monitor how their children are doing in school, communicate with the teacher. I mean, if you're talking about an elementary level, you have parent-teacher conferences where they identify, your child may be struggling here, struggling there. And, the question, don't be afraid to question, does my child have, do you perceive that my child has a disability? Do they have a reading problem?
Raise the issue?
Raise the issue.
Even if you're afraid of the answer?
Yes.
Because?
My motto has always been early intervention and as much of it as you can.
Why early?
When these kids are little, you've got to get to the problem and start dealing with it at an early point in time. Because then you're setting them up to be more successful, to be able to, receive the education that you want for your child.
Talk about this. Why a law firm involved in this at all?
So sometimes there's disagreements
Between
a
whom and whom?
Between a school district and a parent about a service. For example, we had a client who had twins, and one of the twins was reading, and this was in about kindergarten, and the other twin was not. And that parent was concerned that the child had some sort of disability. And that parent brought it to the attention of the school, proper procedure, the written letter, and the school looked at the child, and the child was denied services. So when a child's denied services, you only have a few options, and sometimes you need lawyers to get involved to assist you with that process.
Someone says devil's advocate. Someone says, I don't want to get lawyers involved. I'll handle it myself. You say?
That's your right, but I wouldn't recommend it, because the school is going to have a lawyer.
Why would the school have a lawyer to deal with an issue having to do with a child with potentially special needs, providing them or not? Why is a lawyer involved for the school?
At certain points in the process, if the school denies you the service, or if the school has to file what's called a due process petition, which then goes before the Office of Administrative Law. And there are different scenarios that trigger that due process petition.
Is this a state? I'm confused about this. Because public schools, say in the state of New Jersey, largely governed by state law because of the 1947 Constitution and what is required, a thorough and efficient education for each child. Is that why this is such a litigious, potentially, or legal process?
Well, as far as there's the federal law and then there's the state law.
What does federal law have to do with it?
Well, it comes into play because it's the Individuals with Disability Education Act. And so as far as that, there's also the state law, which is the administrative code that also comes into play.
You got federal and state law?
Right. And the state law implements the IDEA, the Individual with Disabilities Education
How the heck
Act.
would a parent, quote unquote, navigate this?
It's very difficult to navigate. And if you, for example, if you don't know the correct terminology, I had a client the other day.
The lingo, the jargon, the acronyms.
And there's a lot of that here. So I had a client the other day that wanted their child to be in a classroom that had 2 teachers in the classroom. And you hear that referred to as in-class support or in-class resource. And for example, she thought it was a co-teaching class. And sometimes she just got hung up on those words because she wasn't familiar with the lingo and the jargon. And some of the other things that the school districts say, and Deb and I were talking about it the other day, we could create a list.
Do they have their own language?
They do, and you could have a parent who walks into her first meeting with a child study team and they'll say, oh, hey, hello, Mrs. Smith. Here we have the OT, the PT, the BCBA, the psychologist, the social worker, and
exactly.
we gave
all the acronyms.
All the acronyms.
And how does a parent figure out what those terms mean and what does it mean, what it means to his or her child?
Unless you ask, and unless you take the time, and some days they'll have 6 IEP meetings scheduled back to back, and we're not here to disparage school districts.
Not at all.
We know they do.
They're
the
challenged.
Best they can.
They've got limited budgets. The state funding law, state school funding law has never been fully funded. Let's clarify that.
Right.
So it's not about for or against school systems. It's advocating for children. By the way, some of the children we're talking about here would have a hard time advocating for themselves.
Correct. And Deb and I first got involved in this program through our pro bono program through Gibbons, and we have a very robust program at Gibbons, and we help a lot of people in the community. So this isn't an issue that just affects, but this isn't an issue that just affects poor families. It's all families in the state, and everyone is having difficulty navigating because it is such a difficult area and so specialized that whether you're a poor family, whether you're working just to put food on the table, or whether you're a wealthy family, you're highly educated, it's a very difficult system to navigate. And you just have to make sure that you follow the right procedures, because there are very strict procedures.
Deb, before I let you go, because you have such a personal connection, we have talked about this off camera.
Yes.
What is the most important thing you've learned by being a parent of a child with certain needs? Most important thing you've learned personally?
Personally, early and often. Get in there early. Pay attention to what's going on. Ask for help if you need help.
How tough do you have to be?
It depends, because I had a wonderful experience. I had 2 case managers throughout my children's lives that, but for them, I would have been lost, because this was before I did this, before I took this on as a practice. So they guided me through, but you could have someone in the same school district that had a horrible experience.
You would want for other parents and other children the kind of experience you had?
Oh, God, yeah. I mean, these people were my guardian angels, navigating me through the system.
Debra and Mary Fran, I want to thank you for joining us, because I have a feeling there are a significant number of people watching, parents watching, weren't sure where to turn, and you just gave valuable advice. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Steve.
We'll be right back right after this.
To watch more Caucus New Jersey, find us online and follow us on social media.
We're now joined by Bonnie Eggenburg, Vice President, Gateway Early Head Start and Head Start Program. Bonnie, great for joining us. We appreciate it. This is part of our Right from the Start NJ initiative. I met you recently at a forum we did together with the folks at Advocates for Children in New Jersey. We're talking about the child care environment. One of the things you talk a lot about is caregivers' pay. Who are we talking about, and how bad is the pay?
The pay is not a living wage. It doesn't even come close to being a living wage. If you're talking about teachers of children from 0 to 3, you're talking about pay ranging anywhere from minimum wage to maybe $12 an hour on the average. So you're talking about people who are actually having to take access to resources and are living in poverty.
Okay, but play this out for a second. And by the way, check out our website throughout all of these segments as part of this ongoing series right from the start. And Jay, you look at our website, there's important information, educational information, information for parents, advocacy information, a whole range of important information. But in that spirit, go back to the kids. We're talking about birth to 3.
Yes.
If that's the problem with caregivers and their pay, or lack thereof, what impact does it have on those infants and toddlers?
Well, there tends to be a lot of turnover in that 0 to 3 range in terms of teachers, because teachers will come in, they'll get the training that they need to be excellent teachers, but they also recognize they can't support a family on that. So a year later, maybe less, they'll leave for something that pays better. And at that age,
child loses that teacher?
Loses that
Then
teacher.
what?
And that interrupts that bonding that happens that's so important at that early age. Children need to feel secure and they need to feel safe. And when they have that, then they're able to actually grow, develop, and learn. Without that, with that lack of continuity, that becomes a problem.
You know, as you're talking about this, you know, Bonnie, I realize that so much of this for parents watching our Right from the Start NJ series are asking, so what do I do? Part of what you and your organization are all about is to give advice to parents. Talk about that.
Well, I would say in terms of trying to support quality in infant-toddler caregiving, I think that it's important for parents to be active in letting...
Define what that means. How hard do you push?
Well, in Head Start, in Early Head Start, we have a parent group. And we keep that parent group informed on what's happening in the state and at the federal level. And we give them the tools. We don't give them the direction, but we give them the tools they need to be able to make decisions on how they want to pursue what they need for their children.
So much of this is about socioeconomic issues, as we've learned and researched in this series. There are a high percentage of parents, single parents, a child who has both parents, whatever the situation is, where the economics of this make it very challenging to provide that child with the early care he or she needs, correct?
Absolutely. If I'm a low income or even a lower middle income family, the chances are I'm not going to be able to afford high quality early childhood care. Because if I am relying on a state subsidy, that subsidy rate is about half of what New York pays.
Half?
Yes.
New Jersey pays half of what New York pays for. Describe that subsidy. What are we talking about?
In New Jersey, if I'm an infant-toddler child care provider, I can get reimbursed around $695 a month for child care. In New York, it's about double. In Pennsylvania, it's about $300 more a month. But we know New Jersey is a very expensive place to live. And we know that if you're going to have high-quality infant-toddler care, you need to bring in high-quality people.
So what impact does it have on the actual decisions that are made by parents as to what to do with their infants and toddlers.
A lot of them end up going to their grandmother and asking. And sometimes that grandma is a very active, involved person.
Or grandpa.
Or grandpa.
But what?
But sometimes they have to rely on TV because they need a break. They have to rely on
digital devices, et cetera.
Yes.
And the
So-
downside of that in terms of an infant or toddler's development
is that they're not getting the interaction with adults. There's lots of research out there to show that learning programs on an iPad are not nearly effective as when an adult is directly involved with a child. Reading a book face-to-face with your child is going to be much more meaningful in terms of developing vocabulary than playing a game on an iPad.
And real quick, for those who don't know what Head Start's all about, describe it real quick.
Head Start and Early Head Start is a federally funded program, 0 to 3, and we even work with pregnant moms. It is free, it is comprehensive.
So it's prenatal as well?
Yes, it is.
Because?
Because we know...
How's that part of the Right from the Start initiative? I'm sorry for interrupting. Why is prenatal part of Right from the Start NJ?
We know a lot of moms don't go and get prenatal care, and so it's so important that somebody is there walking side by side with them during those early months of the baby's development in utero. And sometimes that means helping them to realize that they need to go to the doctor, to go to the dentist, to get all of that prenatal care, but also to provide education so that when that baby is born and is not sleeping through the night, that they have some tools to cope with all of what they're going through.
Final question, because I asked you about Head Start. I cut you off a little bit.
That's okay.
It is a federally funded program, which means tax dollars supported. For
Yes.
those watching are now say, you know what? Everyone should, quote, take care of their own infant and toddler. You say?
I say that not everybody is either ready to take care of their infant and toddler, and a lot of people have to work. And so we're able to provide that support. Sometimes we need respite care, sometimes we need care while mom and dad are working. Sometimes we are a family who doesn't speak English and wants to give that child a head start, even from those very early years.
And by the way, before I let you go, and when we don't, Bonnie, when that child does not get a quote-unquote Head Start, what is ahead for that child as opposed to when he or she gets it?
They're going to start school a step back from everybody else, and they may never, ever catch up. We know in Head Start that there's a higher success rate in terms of graduating from high school, less likely to become pregnant as a teenager, less likely to be incarcerated, and more likely to earn as much as $5,000 a year more as an adult.
Because of an early Head Start.
Because of early Head Start and Head Start programs.
Which makes it clear that it's everyone's
Yes.
responsibility, not just
Yes.
one who is fortunate enough to have the resources to get the
Absolutely.
care for their infants and toddlers.
Absolutely.
Bonnie, thank you not just for being with us as part of this Right from the Start NJ series, but more importantly, for everything that you do every day for countless children across the state, and as Head Start has been doing, I believe, since the 1960s, if I'm not
That's
mistaken. It was
correct.
the Johnson administration was a part of the Great Society?
That's correct.
Just want to check my history.
Yes.
Bonnie, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be right back right after this.
To watch more Caucus New Jersey, find us online and follow us on social media.
We're pleased to be joined by Dr. Mary J. Meehan, who is interim president. I'll get that out. Seton Hall University. Good to see you, Doctor.
Nice to see you, Doctor.
We should say that we sit next to each other at a whole range of basketball games rooting for the Pirates.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. Get that out of the way real quick. The role of basketball, talking about Seton Hall basketball. Basketball, great high-profile program in the Big East. Season has ended. Villanova, you know that part. And high-level academics, balancing act.
Well, you know, one of the things I'm most proud of, I mean, certainly when the team wins, we're all excited. But to me, you know, our student athletes, particularly in the men's basketball program, they're among the top in the country on their academic performance. Last year, we were in the Elite Eight, which is the highest performing Division I schools academically. And at the end of the day, that's really what we're there for. So how they play on the court is important, but how they're doing in the classroom, they're there as students. They're not there for, they're student athletes with the emphasis on student. So we're very, very proud of them. Our The students we have right now that are playing for us have been terrific, and sadly we're losing a number of them, but we have new ones coming in. But the role of basketball is critically important in a university.
Raises profile.
Raises the profile when the team does well. All boats rise, and so the application pool normally goes up. Even the academic preparedness of the students coming in improves.
Help Mary, help me understand that. I will call you Mary because we've known each other a long time. What is the correlation between student preparedness and a successful athletic program?
It raises the profile. I mean, for a school like Seton Hall, that really, when the Big East really moved in and started taking colleges and universities from the Midwest, it really meant Seton Hall had more visibility in the Midwest. Similarly, the Midwest schools, all of a sudden, I don't think 15 years ago people were talking about some of the schools in the Midwest, like Marquette, Creighton, Butler. Now they're names here. I'm sure it's improved their recruitment from the East Coast. And similarly, for us, having that kind of high-profile visibility, especially our contract, our television contract with the Big East, puts all of our games on television so people can see us play anywhere in the country, which would not have been the case in the past. And so everyone gets to know about Seton Hall, and there's this whole sense of, oh, let me look at that school and find out more about it.
I'm curious about this, Mary. The so-called brain drain. New Jersey losing a very high percentage of New Jersey kids to outer state schools. How do you deal with that and try to keep New Jersey's best in New Jersey?
I think we all work hard at that, and we've been fortunate at Seton Hall. Our enrollment's grown every year, and that most of the students, the largest majority, do come over. Well, while we have students from all over the country, every state, the majority of our students come from Seton Hall, and we're proud of that as a diocesan.
They come from Jersey.
Yes, they come from New Jersey, in the majority, and so we're proud of that. I think it's being able to offer students what they need and what they want. Our proximity to Manhattan is critical for us. In particular, we can be in there. The train from the village of South Orange can be in New York in under 40 minutes. So to have students be able to live in a suburban area but have the best of New York is a really, I think, huge recruiting and retention tool. But it is tough. I mean, we don't have that many private colleges in our state. As you know, we're one of the largest, if not the highest percentage of students of any state in the country leave to go to college.
We do?
Yeah, and that's not good, and we have to reverse those trends. We need them to stay here, particularly with demographics, with that 18-year-old population shrinking, where we need to keep these people in New Jersey, and we need ways to help them, if they are going to leave, to make sure we entice them back after they're finished school.
Mary, you know the role of the presidency from a variety of perspectives. But what I'm curious about is how the role of being president of a university, particularly a Catholic university, has evolved, say, 5 to 10 years?
It's evolved in many ways. If you look, for example, at Seton Hall, for the most part, most of our presidents have always been Catholic priests, and that is important to us, and particularly as a diocesan university, that's important. But with the shrinkage in the number of priests in general, and those, therefore, having them available to serve in an administrative role is becoming tougher and tougher.
The pool is smaller.
It's much smaller, and so I think that's evolved historically. And Catholic schools that were run by religious orders of women had nuns running them, and now they're mostly lay people. Of the 225 plus Catholic colleges in the United States, only about 25 of them have priests running them, for example. That's it.
And 10, 15 years ago, that number was much higher.
Well, if you look at schools like George, a lot of the Jesuit schools, because they have over 20 universities. If you look at them now, right in New Jersey, St. Peter's is a layman, Georgetown layman, Marquette, St. Louis, Loyola, Chicago, and the list goes on. They're all lay people, and Jesuits historically have been able to develop their own pool from within their religious order. So it's shifting, and so more lay people. So I think it's evolved that lay people have to be prepared to be authentically a president who can also authentically lead from a Catholic perspective and be able to be comfortable 100% and enthusiastically supporting the Catholic mission.
Let me ask you this, beyond the Catholic part of it. I've done some guest lecturing on campus, not only in the Stillman School of Business, but also with Matt Hale, who has been on NJTV many times as a political expert who teaches political science, public administration, done some guest lecturing there. So I'm curious about this because I know the student body pretty well. If I were to ask you what schools, what areas are, dare I say, hot in terms of what students are looking for and say, I want to major in this, what do they appear to be?
Well, it's fairly consistent nationally, actually, not just at Seton Hall. So it's the health sciences, the STEM areas have really grown dramatically. Certainly business is still very, very hot. Psychology is a very, very popular major, and going back to STEM biology, huge. And part of that is because it's a prerequisite for many graduate programs in the health sciences. But I would say those are some of the fields that are consistently have the highest enrollment. Of course, you know, a lot of students are, you know, they want forensic psychology now, and of course you have to remind them, it's like trying to go play for the NBA. There's not too many people who are going to get those jobs. Yeah. So, but those are some of the things students ask. Cybersecurity is getting hotter. I think we're seeing more people interested in that just because of what's going on. I believe that as we try more...
A few seconds left, go ahead.
Okay. I think as we try to look at how universities respond to the workforce, you know, so these are some of the areas people are looking for.
So you have a few seconds, but you have a responsibility to get people ready, students ready for the positions that are out there.
Yeah, I hope to, yes, although we also know the jobs that exist today won't 10 years from now, so we have to have them prepared to be really versatile and be able to transfer what we're teaching them to other new environments, and we know that's the reality. You know.
Dr. Mary J. Meehan is interim president at Seton Hall University. I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Important discussion.
Thank you.
Well
nice
done.
to be here. Thanks.
The preceding program has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of Caucus New Jersey has been provided by the Turl Fund, supporting Right from the Start NJ, the New Jersey Education Association, TD Bank, Hackensack Meridian Health, Johnson & Johnson, the Fidelco Group, and by New Jersey Sharing Network. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. Caucus New Jersey has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios.
Perfectly orchestrated, in sync with your life. Hackensack Meridian Health is redefining how health and care come together. Because when everything works together, your world gets better. Hackensack Meridian Health, life years ahead.